Hey guys, we're here at Drift Week. It's just about to start. We're at the starting line, which is Fine Arc, and this is Jayson Near. And we're standing in front of his wide body car, which currently has the wide body off because it's getting fixed at paint. And I just wanted to chat with him. This is our very first interview at Drift Week. Super chill and relaxed here. Super beautiful facility up here at Fine Arc. We were here for Drift Week 1 fixing a bunch of cars. This is where Trevor replaced the head on his 2J. And I think Matt Field worked on his car for the torque tube. And we just did a ton of work here. It's a super beautiful facility with fancy CNC machines and everything. So great place to work on your car. They have a beautiful facility and beautiful outside. So we're shipping the cars in and we're using this as like the staging point. So I thought no better place than to film him in his own surroundings. And we have nothing to really talk about too much because this is the beginning of the trip. I just wanted to show you guys his car, the car he was building for Drift Week, his other car that he thought he was gonna take. This is his normal Drift Week car, and let's just chat. I just want to remind you guys, Drift Week is brought to you by BC Racing Coilovers, Y-Plate Imports, and ECU Master this time. Thank you so much to these sponsors. Without these companies that love grassroots and professional drifting, support all kinds of drivers, support all kinds of organizations such as ourselves, we would not be able to do Drift Week, and we would not be able to do it in a way to deliver it to you with media and everything. So I just want to say thank you so much to BC Racing Coilovers, ECU Master, and Y-Plate Imports. Thank you so much, guys. Please enjoy the content. So this, first of all, is Jayson. Say hi.
How's it going?
The nicest guy in the world, super good with tooling, making his own stuff, making really nice stuff. They are so fast at everything. So yesterday they were at a drift event and he had an SR20 VVL head in it, like motor. So it's you want to tell us exactly what the motor is?
Yeah, it's just built bottom end S13 VVL head with Hypertune manifold, intake manifold, and exhaust manifold. Yeah, it was great. It was ripping really, really hard until I lost the valve guide.
And it's a P11 head?
Yeah.
And how much power does it make?
485, 405 on 91.
Whew, that's a lot.
Yes.
Especially in like an E30 chassis.
Yeah.
These aren't known for, big power cars.
Yeah.
Even when they made the M3 version, it was what, 200 horsepower?
That's what's great. You get 300, it feels like 400 in every other car. They're light.
So this is his alternative Drift Week car. We'll go look at the other one in a minute. Show us around this car. Show us because every time I look at this car, I see more beautiful details. So point out the beautiful details, like the brake lines are amazing.
So we got, I just did some hard lines here. This is the primary hot can where all the oil vapor collects. It has the factory drain to the block. This is the secondary catch can that collects any extra oil vapor that passes through this, and then we pull vacuum on it on the intake. Because everybody knows SRs are notorious for blow-by issues. Mm-hmm. So that really fixes the problem. We built this manifold in-house. This is a SR20 flange, but Evo 9 collector or Evo 8 collector, and then we run Evo 9 turbos from FP Performance. So we run a HTA 70A. That's a 52 pound per minute turbo. So it's perfect. I didn't want a bunch of glory number. I wanted it to respond in mid-range and everywhere. I didn't want to sacrifice low end, mid-range, or top end. I wanted it all from a 4-cylinder, which is quite tough at times. But we're getting there. I got a couple little bugs to sort out on that one. That one's great. I mean, it went 5 years before it lost the valve guide. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it really had no real problems with it. But long behold, Drift Week.
I would love to hear your theory and keep showing us parts like
Yeah.
this. Fan shroud's beautiful, but why is it specifically that this fixes it? Why did you develop this part instead of just making, a hybrid manifold or something? Because this is very intricate. You want to explain exactly what's going on here?
Yeah, so,
Because I am somebody that's had a valve cover set up in multiple valve covers, everybody has done weird oiling problems with SRs, and this is very intricate. You want to tell us the thought process?
Yeah, so the thought process on it is the factory spends a lot of money for R&D, mm-hmm. and they don't always necessarily execute it to the highest level, but they obviously spend a lot of money on R&D to make that work. There's a reason that the factory hot can is right here, mm-hmm. and it all connects to it and drains back to the block. Mm-hmm. So our theory was because it has oil squirters in here, mm-hmm. instead of some other heads, they don't necessarily have squirters like a bar like that, a sprayer bar. So that creates a lot of mist in the head. And then what happens is it sucks that mist up and it pulls it through. So this is a round can, and then there's another tube in here with holes drilled on this side. So all this comes and hits a wall, and this is capped on the bottom. So all the oil vapor coming in is hitting a wall and knocking the oil vapor out and causing it to run and settle back down to the block. And then it comes up through the center. This tube goes all the way down to here in the center of it. And then we realize that atmosphere, when they vent to atmosphere, you're still building pressure. So the best solution was, you know, pull vacuum on it from the intake. And at first we didn't know if it really was going to work, but you know, mine or Clayton's car or Mason's motor, for that matter, is these motors don't have issues with blow-by. So it seems to be very effective.
And do you get much oil buildup in this thing or no?
The biggest problem I get with this is condensation.
Oh, weird.
Right? You get condensation because it sits, it gets cold, it gets hot, and then cold, and it condensates, and you got a hollow cavity, so it's going to condensate, you know, but...
Does it just pull it all right through the intake and just suck it all out?
No, it's trapped, because see how it comes in the bottom and pulls it out the top, and there's a bunch of baffles in there. So it'll stay settled in the bottom, but you do need to drain it, clean it, and you need to be changing your oil. Like, you shouldn't be going 6 months, 5 months. I mean, you should be changing your oil. That's the biggest problem I think I have is some condensation issues, but it's not too bad. I stay on top of it.
Are there any like super intricate details of this car like this that you can continue showing us?
Yeah,
keep showing us stuff.
The shroud, this one's, you know, kind of one-off. We do make them for the S14s, and we really like clutch fans, and you know, I'm going to try to put a clutch fan in the E46 M3 too. I just, you know, it's really heavy power draw for big fans these days. You know, you're talking some of those spalls, not the brushless ones, but those spalls pull like 30 amps. And they got 2 fans, like 60 amp circuit. That's, you know, that's a lot of juice from your electrical system. Versus I like mechanical things because they fail less.
And SR mechanical fans are amazing anyways.
Yeah.
This will cool better than any electric fan. It's mechanically, you know, run off the engine. Just, it works super well.
I feel like it's linear with the motor.
And with an SR, in my opinion, everything that you keep that Nissan made for the most part is going to keep the motor reliable. The more aftermarket parts you add to the motor, I mean, like, we of course are going to add parts like this, which, you know, we want to make power, but every other piece that you modify is going to fall apart. Like if eBay made a cam angle position sensor, it is never going to last as long as a factory cam angle position sensor.
No way.
They spend so much money developing these things, simplifying them, and then eventually in modern cars making them as crappy as possible and then them failing fast.
I mean, I think for, you know, Drift Week, I mean, this is a bone stock S15 motor with a turbo kit and a Haltech. That's, and some injectors, you know. This one's kind of been like one of the unicorn motors. This one's been together and running for almost 6 years with no problems. So I think we have a good chance of making it the whole trip. And it's funny because he banned SRs on the first Drift Week. So
Rightly so, because yours already failed this weekend.
well, not I mean,
Not failed, but
yeah,
like
no, you're right.
Needs
Yeah,
love.
You're right. Unfortunately,
They're great motors. They're not the most reliable motors ever in the hands of Americans far away from the shores where they landed.
And I feel like they get a bad rap too because most first guys drift cars with zero mechanical experience. What's the first thing they buy?
Oh, SR. And that not only did it not come in the car, we had to swap it in. So it was only as good as our swap.
Yeah.
If we did anything like, you know, hook up an oil filter wrong and then immediately rod knock the motor, we blame it on the swap. And it's very punishing to us where all of our money's gone. It's insulting, like it breaks your ego and makes you not love it and makes you, because like in Japan, they run all the time because they came in the car and you're not on your first day of learning to drift, learning to also swap an engine where that is what we were doing in America.
I feel like there's a learning curve with every platform, whether it be LS, 2J, SR, and it's like, you know, some motors are more reliable than others, but, you know, it's just learning the little quirks about every motor, you know, and learning like, okay, don't do this, don't do that. These combination of parts work. It's no different. I feel like, I don't know a ton about LS, but I'm sure if you buy some crappy valve springs or lifters off eBay, probably gonna have problems.
So what's up with this little guy?
So this is a tilt-in reservoir for all the full tilt and pedal set. The brake booster was just really ugly, so I got rid of it. And I went
So you
down,
have manual brakes?
Yeah, I went down the thing of manual brakes. That was quite a learning curve. I mean, it took me a while to figure out all the master sizes because I did the manual brakes and it just was like the worst thing ever. And it wouldn't stop. Like you had to apply a ton of pressure, and then I realized, you know, bore sizing and all of that, it's very crucial to your size of what your caliper is. It's not just across the board. You know, that's one thing like Chase Bays do. They pretty much have a standard, you know, master for everything. But that's one master running all 4 brakes versus you have 2 masters separate, one running the front, one running the rear. So if you oversize both of those masters, even by just a little bit, your pedal's going to get really stiff, and then it's not going to brake well. But this car has, like, I've got the manual brakes that literally feel like stock. You know, the only thing you feel is when you're really applying them, you get a little more feedback, but it's stopping just as hard. So I do like that.
So this was not your original Drift Week car. We'll go look at that in a second. How are you going to drive this on Drift Week? Do you just put the windows up and the tops up and everything's going to be comfortable and you have heat and air conditioning?
I have no heat, no air conditioning. This is kind of be a race car. I got a Milwaukee electric jacket, so when it gets cold, I can just turn it on. But I mean, do have a top. It is fairly sealed, and I'll be able to roll the windows up. So,
So you think it's going to be pretty comfortable?
it won't. I mean, sitting, you know, I guess 15 hours in a bucket is.
Yeah.
But they're nice seats at least, so that's a good thing.
So there's something that we were talking about in conversations a lot too. You have a stock E46 out there, it looks like. And for Drift Week, you could either have a really comfortable car that's probably going to be really reliable, incredibly stock, all of these things which an E46 M3 is, but it's probably not just going to jam like a 400 horsepower SR E30 with, you know, full race car stuff. So you've chosen, because you have both of those cars right here, you have an E46 that's basically stock, and you have this, and you're choosing to take this, right?
Yeah.
So you're choosing to be the bucket seat that's, you know, like the slightly less,
sure.
I'm not going to insult your engine, but it is less reliable than a stock M3 motor.
For sure.
You're choosing to take a more aggressive car so that you can jam on track and be less comfortable throughout the trip.
Yeah.
So it's an active decision you're making right now, because you're also going through all the work. This motor was not in here last night. You just swapped in a motor. He didn't sleep last night even at all. We slept at his house and he never came home. So you're not taking the M3, taking this.
Taking this, and that's really because you banned SRs.
Just to spite me.
Just to, you know, show the world that, like, you know, if you got a good setup, then you can drive an SR across the country and it'll do it. You know? But
That will be a testament. Like, if this fails, now you're gonna look bad,
I'm gonna look bad.
and I'm just gonna be over there like, I told you so.
Yeah.
I told you so.
Yeah, but you know, I love the SRs. You gotta ride with them, you know?
Yeah. You want to show us your VVL motor right before we walk over to the other car?
Yeah, so this
Oh, yeah. Show us this. Show us a little bit more of the car, and then we'll walk
So
over.
this one's been a little taken apart. Obviously the turbo kit, we swapped some things, but this has got the kind of the same thing going. All hard lines, you know. This thing just is great. Like, I mean, it comes on to torque like, you know, you have 405 foot-pounds at, you know, 38, 4 grand, all the way to 85. I mean, it's just power everywhere. It's linear. It's usable. And that's what I really, really enjoy about this SR. Like, you know, I have matching torque graphs, you know, on a comparatively to a 450 horsepower, 500 horsepower JZ, I overlay onto their graph as far as spool times and power.
All right, I'm a troll, you know that, right? So what I'm gonna say is, you overlay onto a stock JZ that's
Single turbo. JZ.
right, but I'm saying a single turbo, but like basically you had to build an entire engine, which is not a cheap engine. This is a $10,000 engine for a normal person.
Yeah.
You had to spend a $10,000 build that takes a lot of like care and love and experience and everything else to equal a stock Toyota part.
Yeah, it's not a cheap ride.
This, by the way, I built one of these too, and I had the same realization. I was like, oh my God, I could have just potted. Because back when I did that 10 years ago, a 1J was $800.
Well, the biggest reason I don't really want to run a JZ is because it'll make the front of that car heavy.
No, I completely get it.
And like,
but
it is more. Yeah,
the JZ also wouldn't come
You gotta
out.
spend. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You gotta spend at least, like, if you want something like this, you're gonna spend 10 grand to pretty much get what you get out of a bone stock JZ with the turbo kit. And that's the reality of it.
It's also kind of brutal because, like, we say 10 grand, but by the time you have an ECU to run this, you have all of your parts, you have this intake manifold and stuff, like, you have a tune, you have your turbo, you have wiring. I mean, we're talking well north of 10 grand.
Oh, you're talking more.
How much are these intake manifolds? Because that's a beautiful intake manifold.
Those, I think on average, I think those are like almost 3 grand.
3 grand? Okay, so $15,000 for everything.
Yeah. And then like the Hypertune ones are like 37, almost 4 grand.
Woo!
And then that's not
Woo! He is balling.
Billet valve covers, the VR38 coil packs. You know, I'm actually going to do the same thing to this. I'm going to convert all these to VR38.
Oh, I was going to ask you about this. So this is a P11 head. Originally, these are distributor, aren't they?
Yes.
Okay, so you converted this. What is this little guy?
So this is actually the P12 head runs this. Right.
So this is a P12 cam angle position sensor.
You
just
can
bolted on?
buy this factory from Nissan, or you can run what's called a Hall effect sensor. And they generally drill a hole in the head here.
I had a Hall effect sensor on mine.
They put a disc on the cam gear to pick up where the cam is. I didn't really like that because it's not factory, and you're going to have problems with it. But for the 240 guys, they don't really have the room in the back to run this configuration. So that's why everybody runs a Hall effect sensor.
Yeah, that's why I did that.
Yeah, in my car, I had a little bit of extra room, so my theory was stock. You know, yeah, I built a lot of stuff, but certain things like the ignition, these are all S15 coil packs, stock. You know, this is stock CAS. You know, so I wanted to.
It comes out so beautiful when everything bolts up nicely and simplistic.
And that's why. So this is the P12 valve cover. So this is a P11 head. The P12 valve cover goes right over. The reason why I use a P12 valve cover is so you can use the S15 coil on plug.
And it looks cooler.
Yeah. Or you use the P11 and you have to run the Denso pencil coils, which I also don't like. So I like, certain things. Factory is key. Like, I don't really recommend anyone building a VVL SR unless you're very committed.
Oh, I wouldn't either. My big problem with the VVL SR is now like K-Series swaps exist, which is a stock Honda motor, which is just as good as this thing is built, and so more simplistic, cheap, more factory parts throughout the thing. But also the power band of these things is kind of whack. So it's kind of sweet making 480 wheel to say, like, normally somebody would probably make like 370 wheel torque on this thing, but you make a little bit more. You make about 500 horsepower and 400 torque, right? But the problem is if you want to say like make 450, 470 wheel torque, and that's where you want to be, you're making literally 600 horsepower. So you start getting big discrepancies and making way more power than you want to sometimes.
That's what's odd about this motor, because of the way I sized it with that turbo manifold.
Yeah, it makes less.
At 30 pounds, it matches 500.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Because you're choking out the turbo on the top end so much, probably?
Just because Evo turbos like this, they like to spike.
Wait,
them.
You're running 30 PSI on this thing?
I have.
Holy cow, that's a lot.
Well, I can't. It's maxing the turbo, so the head's flowing. I can pull the wastegate line and go beat on it, and it won't make over 31 pounds of boost.
Yeah. I did that on my GTX 2863 on my Memorial missile car thing. I had a built motor on E85 and all that shit, and we tuned it just by pulling the wastegate line because the turbo chokes out so bad that you can't make more than 30. So you're like, if that wastegate line ever falls off, we're good.
In this one, I don't think it's really choking the turbo as much as the head is moving so much air, it's flowing everything it's got. Because you got to think I spiked this to 22 pounds and taper to 18, right? So on a clutch kick, I want it to spike because I want that instantaneous torque like that, and then it tapers off. And right there, we're making 485, 405, right? So the turbo's only 52 pounds per minute. So I raised the boost 10 pounds, 12 pounds, and now I'm at 30 pounds. The car only picks up 10 horsepower.
Yeah.
Only makes 495. But what it does pick up is 90 foot-pounds of torque. You know, so that extra 10 pounds, that's all my torque right there that I'm getting. Because now I'm fully in the efficiency range. I'm right in the sweet spot of the turbo.
All right, let's look at this car super fast. Look at a couple more details, and head over to the big one. Some of the details side. Look at this. You want to explain this real quickly?
Yeah, just something. You know, you just put it on the mill real quick, drill some holes in the door handle. You know, I mean, you know, it's funny. That's like one of the biggest compliments I get is about the door handles.
People love dimple dies.
Yeah. You know, that was just drilling.
Are your foot pedals drilled too?
No, those are all tilting.
Oh, okay.
They're all tilting. And then just CD09 with the Mazworks bell housing. We run infinity boxes in all the race cars because old cars and wiring is like a big problem. So this whole switch panel is only ran off 4 wires.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is it CAN bus or something?
Yep.
Okay.
So all solid state CAN bus, no relays, everything's just power ground.
Oh, so it's like a PMU thing.
Yep.
Our sponsor, ECU Master, has like a PMU unit as well, and it's so baller.
But it's not ECU related.
Right, yeah, no, it's separate, and then there's another box.
No, but it's not made by the ECU company. This is made by Infinity Box, so I can I can communicate with a Motec, Haltech, anything CAN
I was
bus.
just saying,
Yeah.
the ECU Master guys do the same thing, so
Yeah.
I've seen it.
So
I don't have one yet, though.
I really like Haltech's new R5 that came out, but what I have a problem with the R5 is the PDM. It's integrated, right? So if you want to upgrade ECUs in 3 years, you got to upgrade the whole chassis harness. As we're on an Infinity Box, you don't have to do it. You wire the car one time, it's full CAN bus, every ECU can fully hack it, control it, take over, and you can keep upgrading ECUs as they come out and not have to worry about going back and messing with your chassis harness. So if I somehow come into getting Motec, because arguably Motec's probably one of the best that you can buy, but it's also expensive. But I don't want to be like, well, I have the Haltech, now I got to rewire my whole chassis to just move to Motec. When I could just buy a Motec and then it'll just control off the chassis harness.
The concept of taking a 325i and putting Motec in it is amazing to me.
I mean, this one's got Haltech in it.
No, I'm
Motec
just
was
laughing, you know what I mean? Like $10,000 ECU with like what probably when you got it was, you know, $1,000 car.
Yeah, and the crazy thing in the last, like you said, last like 10 years, they've gone crazy.
What is this wide body?
This is a Pandem.
Have you ever thought about doing the stock E30 M3 wide body? You know, like the replica stuff?
Yeah.
That would look so cool.
And that's why I kind of chose this body kit, because it kind of is similar. Kind of has that same kind of boxy look to it.
I think we're all programmed to just like love the E30 bodywork.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it just like, oh, it's so cool.
In 18s, obviously, you know, that was kind of a rough one. You know, the car came with 14-inch wheels factory. So, you know, we had to cut so much out to make those fit, because we didn't want a monster truck down the road. So, you know, it's just crazy. And then all 50114, we've converted all the hubs from 50120, re-drilled them, re-drilled the brakes, so everything's no spacers, no conversion, just, you know, it's permanently 50114. Now we can make them, if you drill them, we can make them dual bolt pattern, so you can decide. So if you have 50120 wheels, you can put a 50120 wheels. You got 50114, you can go back and forth. But you have to use wheel studs. You can't be studded.
Yeah, I hate wheel studs.
Yeah. But I mean,
only because we have to change so much. Did you do this in here?
Yep.
How did you do that?
So literally just a cone like this. See those cones right there?
And you just press it?
Yeah. So you just
That's
move
cool.
this down. I got all these different size cones. So you just literally put it in the top and just flare it down.
So cool.
Like I said, that's probably real cool. I made this little bar right here. This is a sound bar out of a Razor, and that's how I got all my music, all Bluetooth. It's just power ground. I can leave it running for the whole drift event, bumping, because it's meant for a Razor with a battery this big.
Yeah.
So you can literally let it run all day full tilt, and it's like having a little, you know, concert wherever you go.
I love these brakes, by the way.
Yeah, I chose black because you know, certain things people like, you know, you buy a part and you just want everybody to look at it. But the problem with that is you have too many car parts. You can't make them all special colors, and then you start drawing your eye away from what's important.
Can I turn the wheel?
Yeah.
Huge angle as well. SLR kit.
Yeah, SLR. This has the super kit on it.
Very cool. All right, let's finish this video up. Let's look at this. I'm gonna let him take this over as well, but this car is absolutely gorgeous. It is so overkill. He's so humble when he speaks. You're not gonna get a full version of this car, I think, because it just kind of like, he speaks so mellowly and just like, oh, it's got a quick change, no big deal. It's gonna have full AC on an 800 horsepower JZ with everything, no big deal. Okay, here is the super cool Drift Week car he was building. I saw the pictures of this and I was like, no way is he gonna finish this thing. The amount of detail and quality craftsmanship and style and everything going into this car has to take so much time. I was just like, there's no way. And they got, how far do you think it is from being complete? A lot?
I mean, we have everything. Once the manifold, I would say probably another 2 weeks. Since when we get back, it'll probably take us about a month in December. Yeah. And it'll be running. By January 1, it'll run. It's just like he said, I'm very picky. So certain things, they just gotta be right. And if they're not, then I'll wait. You know, I've just invested a lot of time, money, effort, me and Clay, you know.
This car is ridiculous though. Full AC, full heat, dog box, quick change, 800 horsepower or something. Would you show us around this thing?
Yeah, so I always see Formula D cars, right? They got all that big boy stuff in there. But they don't have any of, like, I've never seen one that's full race car but still all streetable on the inside. You know, so I was like, you know what? Nobody's got that. I'm gonna attempt that. And then I realized real quick why people don't.
Why don't people do that? Yeah.
You know, because it is just a huge, you know, just the AC system, rerouting all the lines, you know, modifying the heater box to move everything, you know, building custom brackets to mount the KRC power steering pump in the factory location while retaining the AC. You know, so that was, you know, it's just a lot. I can take this dash out. Right now, it's still under some work inside the car. So,
were you building this really just for Drift Week? Or did y'all have like some other goals for this thing?
Yeah, Drift Week, and I've never had a big boy car.
Yeah. So
this is going to be kind of the first one, and you know, there was things about the E30 when I got it. It was kind of like already gutted. So you know, I like being able to get it in and go get groceries, or take my wife out in it for a dinner. It's kind of funny, and you know, and I think it's kind of hilarious that, you know, people would just walk up on it, see the inside. It's fully stock. It's just wide body and wheels. Little did they know they just walked up on literally a full-blown
race car.
You know, you can see right here, custom made. This looks like a piece of sheet metal, but it's actually a fully CNC billet piece. The boot rides in here.
Oh my
clamps
God.
it.
This is what it's like to have a machine shop and insomnia.
You know, so we had to raise it up here for the linkage for the dog box. But you know, I'm really excited for that. Never missing a shift and having the longest gears ever.
Yeah.
So, but you know, like this car, it's like I didn't want the quick release steering wheel. I want it to be factory. So the only thing I want in this is a 6-point bolt-in or a 4-point bolt-in with some buckets. Maybe some nice Recaros that match the cinnamon leather. You know, but just, I don't know, I want this thing to be super nice and be able to enjoy it. But I just went a little overboard.
I'd say.
You know?
All the CNC stuff is ridiculous to me and crazy. It makes it so nice to be able to mount stuff and not rely on other companies to ship you parts that don't really fit, and then you have to live with them. If something doesn't fit, you go redesign it and reprint out another one or
I
recut
looked
another
for that
one.
forever, you know, because I was like, if somebody has it and they do a good job of making it, I might just buy it from them.
Yeah.
But nobody makes a KRC in a factory location. Everybody's moving them where the AC is, because that's the first thing guys do with JZs. AC's gone.
And then they throw belts.
And then they, yeah, like fielding.
Oh man.
But
this car's
you know,
so insane.
this is all Hypertune, obviously. This is the Hypertune rail, Hypertune valve covers. This is actually a company called PRP. They work closely with Hypertune in Australia, and this is for the VR38 coil pack.
Why didn't you just make that yourself? Because you don't want to measure it and do it when it's cheaper just to buy it?
Yeah, because they sponsor me, so
Okay.
shout out to Hypertune and PRP. But you know, for what they give it to me for and how beautiful their work is, it's hard to beat. Like, you know, yes, could I make this myself? How long would it take me? And how much time would I have to invest? And these guys got it down perfection.
And it's beautifully already built, and somebody spent all the time researching, developing, and making version 1, 2, 3, 4, saving all that time.
And I think that's
I
where
agree.
people just don't really realize what it takes to get a prototype, you know, and actually get to a sellable product that's very consistent and works. And I don't think people really realize the amount of work that it takes to do that. You know, and then be able to mass produce it.
So is it a stock 2JZ?
This is stock 2JZ head gaskets and valve springs.
Okay.
You know, the whole goal with this is like take a backward step from the SR. Don't build it. Let it blow up and just
Let
buy
Toyota
new.
do their thing.
Yeah. Don't be.
And how much power is it going to make?
I think the glory number might make just shy under 800, but we're gonna live right around 6 because I feel like 550 to 6 on a set of 265s, like we'll get seat time. You know, we'll be able to get 10, 15 laps out of a set of tires, which then it makes this car a seat time car. It makes it enjoyable.
This is exactly what I think of when I think of a seat time car.
You know, hopefully that's the plan anyway. But you know,
God, I could not imagine hitting this car if we were tandeming. I would feel so bad, just like
don't
forever.
hit it.
Oh,
You know, but I mean that's kind of the price of like you know, if you're gonna build a drift car, you better expect to crash it. Or
yeah, no. I feel bad when I hit things that are nice.
Yeah, trust me, I felt bad when I sent the E30 off track a couple times. I felt real salty about it, but you know, it happens. And it's like I really like building stuff like this. It, you know, it shows what we can do, what our capability is. You know.
I have a question about the back of the car. As a drift car, and I know you're all about style and stuff, do you ever think about changing the driving dynamics of a car when you widen the rear of it this much? Because like this is quite wide. There's quite a bit of camber. Do you purely set the car up for aesthetics, or do you set the car up for grip? Do you think about these things much?
Yeah, grip. Like you know, obviously we're gonna run this at 0 camber, you know, and maybe just a touch in the toe, and you know, I really do like to set them up for drifting. And make them pretty universal to where I can easily on a simple alignment just change it, go road race it, go do whatever I want. You know, in clearancing, like you said, I do set them up for as much grip as I can. I want to set them up as the best that I physically can with style, which is hard to make a car that's low and tuck and look good and function properly. Because generally you're sacrificing one or the other. You know, either you want to be low and look cool and you got camber.
Yeah.
Or,
You said you were going to slam this thing more, so I assume you're like, this thing's going to look rad.
Yeah, I'm trying to put maybe that fender probably just tuck in the rear wheel a little bit.
Yeah.
and then the front I'll probably want to come down to about there. So I'll probably lower it another inch than what it is.
Crazy.
What it is right now.
Alright.
I mean, it's just different, you know what I mean? You see all the drift cars, they're 10
you don't
feet in
see
the
anything
air.
like this.
You don't see them on the ground.
I see a few things kind of like this over in Europe,
Yeah.
but I don't really see any here.
Just because it's expensive, because you just constantly fuck shit up.
Yeah.
Like you're that low, you're gonna rub on stuff, and you know it's hard because like this right here, people don't realize, but like this whole inner, you know, that's got to get modded and cut back like almost, you know, an inch and a half.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of work. You know, that's a 10.5 negative 22 up front on a super angle kit.
As someone that's a style person, do you think about these rivets and how to do them differently or anything?
Yeah. The thing about it is like, you know, because we're drift guys, like, you know, the rivets don't bother me. Like, it would look really cool if it was molded, but it's just like the sheer sake of replacing panels. It's just nicer to nutsert it. I do like these because they're smaller, and he did my body guy did a really good job of using the smaller ones, and he spaced them out really even. So I really, you know, it looks really good, you know. But yeah, I've always not necessarily been a fan of the bolts, but for just the pure ease, like there's some compromises between race car and style, like there has to be.
And why do you do M3s and like BMWs? Do you have an affinity for BMW specifically?
Yeah, just because they're on it, you know, it's arguably BMW makes some of the best chassis.
But not the best motors? You don't like the motors?
No, I do. They make some great motors.
Why didn't you just stick with an S54 and turbo that?
Because this car was a chassis with no motor.
But an S54 would have gone in easier than a JZ.
Yeah. The thing about if I want a turbo,
You're like, they don't make that manifold though.
Yeah.
That manifold's the entire engine
they're
bay.
ugly.
Yeah.
BMW motors are ugly.
They have those
work
giant
it.
carbon intake manifolds, but those are probably only for NA applications.
They're ugly. And the thing about it is I wanted to do forced induction, so that means immediately you get a S54, you need to pull it apart, you need to do bearings, you need to refresh it for a boost, and obviously drop the compression in it. So it's like, you know, S54 stuff's tax. You pay for that. As soon as you open that motor, you're going to pay more than you're going to pay for a JZ to open an S54 up.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is I have no real knowledge of S54s. We have a couple, but they run great, and then we don't really have problems with them.
You're like, they're such good motors, I don't know anything about them because we don't touch them.
Yeah, pretty
That's a
much.
funny conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're like, I know everything about my SR
Yeah,
because I have to, because they blow up.
Yeah, exactly. They have, you know...
Isn't that a funny conundrum?
Yeah, well, you're talking 2 liters. You know, you got to think about the amount of horsepower you're making per liter on something small. You're asking a lot. You know, when you're asking over 100 horsepower a cylinder, like, there's a lot of power per cylinder. You know, anything else, V8, you know, you're talking about, if it's making 100 horsepower, that's an 800 horsepower car.
Yeah, which I don't have.
Yeah, it's just, it's a lot of pressure, and they just don't, you know, SR's just, they can do it, but it's just, you got to be spot on with everything.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
All right. Well, I think we're all done unless you have anything to add.
No,
I think that was a great interview. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah,
Yeah?
for sure.
Cool.
That
Thanks.
was awesome. Yeah, take
Boom.
it easy, guys.
All right.